Upwards spiral gang gang. Welcome to the channel. It's day 2 of the meditation retreat that my dad is running on Guru Yoga. And I asked a very interesting question around grudges, right? When you hold on to grudges, which are essentially contaminations, right? Like, let's say you have, you're chopping onions or whatever in a pot. That pot is gonna still smell like onions after the onions have been taken off of the pot, right? Or the plate. So there's a residue that's like left behind, which is like some scars, these imprints, right, that we have. And that comes from our sense of perception either latching onto something or exaggerating it, right? Or identifying with it. So the identification comes through in terms of the ego, right? Like, for instance, oh man, like, you know, I won this award, therefore I'm the best in that arena. But you won it like 12 years back, you know what I mean? That's a grudge, right? You're holding on, it's like a spiritual attachment, right? Like, without that thing, I am incomplete, okay? That's one. Number 2, let's say you exaggerate the moment, like make it even more preposterous in your mind or ridiculous in your mind, right? And you just start kind of reacting, right, off of your base lower vibrational instincts, right, that come through. The attachment comes from this idea that it's a delusion, basically, right? So a delusion is, by its sense, it is not real, okay? So, you know, a lot of people ask me about this question of like, how do you deal with like past memories or like, you know, really bad memories or like traumas? And a common one is in relationships, right? In relation to our exes and stuff like this. Of course, you can reframe it like, my ex is my teacher. Okay, I've heard that one before. That's kind of cool. However, even the most enlightened masters, right? The lamas, they've had, like, there's a story that my dad was saying that this woman came in, said, in a past life we were supposed to be enlightened together. Why can't we be enlightened together right now? So still dealing with the exes, even from the past, you know, still wanting, you know, I could say the same thing to my exes, right? We could have gotten enlightened together, but you missed out, you know what I'm saying? So like, that's a really interesting question, right? Because there's so much memory, so much depth, right, in a relationship. And oftentimes you'll notice we're nitpicky about it, right? We zoom into one feature of the relationship, right? There's green flags in a relationship, there's yellow flags, some maybe things, right? And then there's red flags. Red flags are an absolutely no, right? That's what a red flag is. It's a stop, it's a no. But a lot of people treat red flags like they're yellow flags. Yeah, that's excusable. Oh, that boundary is okay. Yeah, we can kind of compromise or just go over it. That's fine. And then you keep compromising, keep tolerating, until it's building up like some kind of gunk in the back of your mind, right? Whereas really, if you think about it, this thing doesn't have to be this way, right? This thing doesn't have to be this way. That dog is like looking at me like as I'm giving my lecture. He's like one of my top participants over there. See that? That's lit. So this idea of holding grudges, right? I used to hold a lot of grudges, man, in my past. I used to hold a lot of grudges. I'm like, you know, fuck this guy, fuck this person. I don't want to be like them. I don't want to sound like them. I don't want to do that, right? And that's a reaction that's based on one single circumstance where I have made an assumption based on, well, there's the objective experience of what has happened, but then we are adding our subjective lens and interpreting what that is according to us. So it's very valid for you to express your subjective experiences. We've got to get to the understanding of the seeds. So the seeds of anger can be used for good, right? Like, what sparked that anger in the first place can actually be used for good. However, the way we're looking at it is that this is anger manifesting, right? So there's unmanifested anger, and then there's manifested anger. So unmanifested, what gets stored in the back of the mind. Okay, so as long as it's being expressed in some way, that, of course, that you could say there's a constructive way of doing it. However, at the same time, anger is a delusion. Okay, so you can't get attached to it. That's the thing, right? So, well, you can, but it just won't be effective towards your own spiritual journey. So this is this kind of understanding, right? I remember once I was holding a grudge against this one guy who basically, I thought he did me wrong at the time, but he was just doing his best that he could to provide me with help. And I think, you know what it was, man? Like, I didn't want to, ruin that guy's life or, do anything like that. But I just felt this weird feeling of like a resentment, like I wish it could have been different, that kind of feeling. And if you look back at that, you'll really start to understand, okay, that this person in that experience could be your guru. What if we could lead our lives like that? Where you understand, my partner is my guru, okay? Now, they don't always have to be your guru, but it's a great mindset to have, you know what I mean? I told you, man. They're just, I'm just like the prophet here in the streets, and all the dogs just like show up. Man. So, when we understand that security means knowing oneself fully, okay? Insecurity can be the cause of you wanting to get into a relationship, okay? Everybody's getting married around you. Everybody's doing this thing, right? Everybody has a relationship. Wherever you look, there's a relationship there, right? Whatever you resist will persist as well. You crave deep intimacy and you want to relate to someone, and society has also programmed you that you need to have a relationship in order for you to function. Whereas maybe you're not even experiencing the wholehearted feeling of being a bachelor, being single, being a bachelorette, right? Feeling that sense of like wholeness and interconnectedness with it. Instead, you're zooming into the fact, there's no one there for me, right? Forever alone. Remember that meme? I'm so glad that meme got kind of faded into the dust a little bit. I mean, I know it's still there, but like back in like the 2015, 2016 era, you remember, that meme used to be really popular. And actually memes change culture. Meme is a mental gene, right? So memes actually transform a certain culture. So you got to understand that, man. The word dystopia as a keyword is popular nowadays. That's got to scare you, okay? But again, fear is another, like, why are we attached to something? Because we're scared. You get what I'm saying? So it's this understanding of being and holding onto something virtuous. What we say in Buddhism, or this experience that I'm going through, call it holding onto a virtuous object, right? A virtue is related to your strengths, your values, right? So something that is positive emotion, positive energy, right? That you're holding on to consciously, getting to that single pointedness, right? Absolute laser beam, Superman, laser eye focus, right? When we get to that understanding of like only holding on to that, and if you can do that for an hour, my dad said that he'd give you a medal. So good luck with that, okay? So basically, I'm doing that, like I'm like waiting for all the dogs to show up as like cameos spots, you know? Like, oh, what's up, Brad? I haven't seen you all weekend. Okay. We could have gotten enlightened together. Okay. It's funny. So, you could zoom in and zoom out of the picture, obviously. And then you can start to understand that, certain people have a very unique life experience, okay? Completely different to you. And that's why we can't make these overall generalizations and rules. One thing that I've always told people about is that, yes, in psychology, we talk a lot about cognitive distortions, right? Things that are wrong with our mind. But we never really talk about cognitive advancements, okay? We only talk about it in relation to some of the neuroscience stuff, right? Like, oh, how to do this brain hack, this new thing, right? But actually getting to the point of like, what is the opposite of overgeneralizing something, right? Speaking concisely, precisely, more specifically, more accurately. So it's about cognitive accuracy that we're seeking, not the confusion, right? Not the distortion. Because to distort something means that, again, it's a delusion. It's a distortion, right? It's not real. But it seems real because the mind made it up, right? So I constantly remind myself what is the narrative that I'm telling myself, right? What does it mean to me in my storyline that I'm giving myself? And once I understand it from that perspective, it gets so much easier to handle it. I mean, I remember this quote from this movie. I think it was Mr. Rogers. You guys know Fred Rogers, right? There's like 2 movies on him. In one of those movies, the quote was, "Whatever is mentionable is manageable." Okay? Whatever is mentionable becomes more manageable. If you can't mention it, if you can't formulate a sentence out of it, if you can't make sense of what is going on, it's gonna stay stuck. But once you conclude or make sense of it, then the mind lets it go. So you just haven't made sense of your past and what has happened to you. Once you go through the process of making sense of your past, the grudges will fall by the wayside. And one could say that you could use loving kindness to send to that person that you're holding a grudge against. What if you did the opposite and kind of shocked your mind a little bit, like a little bit of shock therapy, right? You're, bad-mouthing this one person over and over again for, doing you wrong for so many years. What if instead you send them compassion? Like the Tibetans, for instance, right? They've had their land pillaged, right? They've been through atrocities. They've been through so much genocide, right? And you got to understand that these people still hold on to compassion. Like that level is just, right? And we as humanity, we are now seeking something like this. We're seeking something that will make us feel whole. We're seeking the indigenous ancient cultures and the knowledge that comes from the past. And it comes from the idea of not in the mainstream, right? This information that's a little bit hidden or occult in a sense, that actually brings up a lot of the truth that has been hiding in plain sight, right? Some people would say it's right underneath our noses, right? Because it is. What is mentionable is manageable. It's the words. If it's right under your nose, right? My words are coming out right under my nose, okay? So I can change my reality using my communication, okay? Shout out to Yogi Chris, who says that the 9th limb of yoga is communication. I really like that. That's his brand, by the way, 9th limb yoga. Anyway, guys, I think I'm gonna have to head back up, get some lunch, fill my stomach, so I can feel whole and complete and fulfilled and nurtured, really look after myself, my self-care, okay? So, yeah, man, today's been a great day. I feel so elated doing these meditations, and It's only great news from here. You know what I mean? I know it. You know it. We both know it. Okay, in a Drake voice. Let's get it. Upward Spiral Gang, may we never be the same again. May the flow be with you and stay legendary. You already know. Be the best. Fuck the rest. Let's go.